Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going over the next category in my category breakdown series, and in this video we're taking a look at best makeup and hairstyling. Again, if you haven't seen any of the previous videos in this series from this year or any of the videos from last year, essentially all this is we're just going to take a look at each individual category, take a look at all of the nominees, say some facts about the nominees, talk about my opinions on the nominations, and then give my personal ranking and my predictions for how likely it is I think that they will win the Oscar. So without further ado, let's jump into the nominees. The first nominee is A Different Man. This is Michael Marino's third Oscar nomination. He was previously nominated in 2023 for The Batman and in 2022 for Coming to America. This is David Presto's first Oscar nomination. He also worked on the makeup for A Complete Unknown. This is Crystal Gerardo's first Oscar nomination. She has previously worked on The Batman, as well as the spin-off series The Penguin. Now with each of these nominations, especially this year I think almost more so than any other year. Every other year there's kind of a biopic transformation, which crazily enough we don't really have that this year. Or there is just a lot of different characters, like maybe the certain movie there's a whole kind of, maybe it's in space and you kind of have this whole alien race or something, or you just got some, a whole group of characters, right? That's what's leading to the makeup nomination. This year in particular, every single nominee, I'm doing a quick math, if 5 for 5, it is essentially the makeup of one person is really what's being rewarded here. And so for A Different Man, it is 100% the prosthetic work used on Sebastian Stan at the beginning of the film. And I will be completely honest, when I first watched this, so I've now seen the movie twice in the last month, but the first time I watched this, I guess it was pretty early in January, I was aware of the movie, I knew what the movie was, but I didn't know too much more on top of it. And so I knew that there was Sebastian Stan, I knew there was Adam Pearson, and I'll be completely honest, when I was watching the beginning of the film, I just assumed that was Adam Pearson. I'm not familiar with Adam Pearson. I know he's pretty famous. I believe it's kind of overseas or in the UK, I think is where he's most popular, right? But I don't really know anything about him, and so when at the beginning of the movie, I just thought that's who that was, and I thought that maybe that the Sebastian Stan was just kind of doing some voiceover work for the beginning, and then all of a sudden, it's as you realize as the character kind of, don't want to give too much away because it's kind of a big point or plot point of the film, but his character, his face, the condition he has, he starts kind of going through some treatments and going through some surgeries that's kind of fixing what he deems to be messed up with his face. And so he's starting to go through these things, and you can see the prosthetic work kind of start to either melt away or fall off and things, and that's when you kind of start noticing of oh, this has just been a prosthetic the entire time, and it really is just Sebastian Stan under there. And truly, I mean, the prosthetic work for that specific character is really well done, and I think this is a really cool nomination that the Academy actually, went through and followed through with this and nominated this, because this is one of those that I think a lot of other years, this could have been the pick that we were all rooting for and really wishing and trying to will it into existence, but ultimately the Academy maybe doesn't dip into this. A Different Man isn't necessarily horror, but it's a drama that does have kind of some tense, I don't even want to say horrifying, but just some really tense scenes due to kind of the makeup design, and like I said, mentioned with his face at some points just kind of falling or peeling off, right? And so there's things like that where you could see this maybe being a thing that the Academy wouldn't necessarily honor, but this year in particular, if you count this as horror, but I guess horror adjacent, for those specific scenes, there's still 2 other horror films in this category, so A Different Man kind of fits in nice and neat as almost the more normalized, I guess I would say, nomination for the makeup. And so I think it's a really awesome, it's a really cool nomination, and I'm really glad that the Academy awarded it. For my personal ranking, I'm putting A Different Man in 3rd, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 5th. The next nominee is Emilia Perez. This is the first Oscar nomination for all 3 of Julia Floch-Carbonell, Emmanuel Janvier, and Jean-Christophe Spadanici. Julia Floch-Carbonell worked with director Jacques Audiard in 2021's Paris 13th District. Emmanuel Janvier worked with the French unit for 2021's The Last Duel. Jean Christophe Spadaccini worked in the makeup department of 2022's The Bourne Identity. And again, I say this, I'm going to continue to say this in pretty much every single video. First off, apologies if I'm butchering the pronunciation on a lot of these foreign names. I'm just, again, not too familiar. And you'll notice on some of these artists, the makeup and sometimes like the visual effects people that are nominated, they're not the most well known, right? And so it's like you can't even really find pictures of them when I'm like trying to find pictures and figure out who they are and you know give them their flowers as we're talking about their nominations. So again, apologies just because I'm not super familiar with a lot of them. I'm sure I'm absolutely just butchering all of the pronunciations. But going back to talking about Emilia Perez and talking about this nomination, again, we talk about how there's in pretty much every single one of these films, there's kind of the one character that has that makeup or prosthetic work that's the reason this film is being nominated. For Emilia Perez, it is Carlos Sofia Gascon's character. It is the titular Emilia Perez. At the beginning of the film, I guess, you know, this is not really a spoiler because this is kind of what the film is and what so much of the material and what's, if you know anything about the film, this is what you know. But Carlos Sofia Gascon plays the leader of a drug cartel who wants to transition from a man to a woman, and so at the beginning of the film, they have Carlos Sofia Gascon is in a lot of heavy makeup and facial prosthetic work, and she does an excellent job. I'm assuming it's I don't know if it's I'm not getting into the whole AI thing with the Brutalist, and Amelia Perez actually also kind of had some. I don't know if this is one of the things that was kind of enhanced, but she does a really good job of like really lowering her voice and kind of playing this entirely different person as opposed to who Amelia Perez ultimately ends up becoming. So I do think that it is very impressive, and then you know you're talking about just a lot of the other characters as well. There's so many different you know, I mean, just like the background characters. There's this is one of the film I would wager a guess. I'm pretty confident. Yeah, absolutely. This is the film that has just the most characters. So there is just the most like kind of makeup and hairstyling that has to go into all of the different characters that are in the background. So the work is impressive. I am also going to kind of put this preface here, and we're going to talk about this because, again, we're going to talk about Emilia Perez a lot. And in these individual categories, like makeup and hairstyling, this is the work that's being honored here doesn't even necessarily, I mean, first off, doesn't have anything to do with kind of all the controversies that are surrounding Emilia Perez right now, but it also doesn't even really have a whole lot to do with if the film is good, right? Like, it's just, we're not necessarily honoring this is the good film, so the prosthetic work is good. We're just honoring is the prosthetic work just good, right? In this film. With that said, there is going to be a trend that is starting here, and it's going to come up a lot. And I promise I'm not intentionally doing this because I think I like Emilia Perez a little bit more than a lot of people. I still don't like it, but I think I like it more than a lot of people do. So I'm not intentionally doing this, but this is just the thing with Emilia Perez is if you have a film that isn't necessarily Oscar worthy in what we all kind of consider in Best Picture, I also don't really think it's Oscar worthy in a whole lot of the other categories. So even though this prosthetic work is impressive, what they do with Carlos Sofia Gascon early in the film, I still just it's not something that necessarily screams out to me that this had to be nominated or this like absolutely you know, it needed the recognition from the Academy when I think there maybe was another film or two that we could have got in here over it. So with that said, my personal ranking of Emilia Perez is 5th. For my prediction, I am going to put it in 3rd. The next nominee is Nosferatu. This is David White's 3rd Oscar nomination. He was previously nominated in 2020 for Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and in 2015 for Guardians of the Galaxy. This is Tracy Loader's first Oscar nomination. She worked with Brandon Cronenberg in 2023's Infinity Pool and in 2020's Possessor. This is Suzanne Stokes-Munton's first Oscar nomination. She worked with Pedro Almodovar in 2011's The Skin I Live In and in 2022's Talk to Her. And continuing on with the theme, where there is one specific person that we're really kind of getting this makeup nomination for, it is for Count Orlok in Nosferatu. It is Bill Skarsgård's character. Now, this is interesting in the sense that it's kind of interesting talking about the makeup of Nosferatu, and part of why, at least for Count Orlok, why it's so good is because they intentionally hide a lot of it from you. It's the idea of they don't want you to see the monster, they don't want you to see the creature. And I think sometimes in lower budget films, the idea of that is because then they can continue to build the stress and the tension without having to reveal maybe some potentially not great visual effects or makeup design or just things along along that nature. Nosferatu, it does that where it kind of hides the monster, it hides in the shadows, and it's kind of adding to the tension, it's adding to the creepiness, and then for the scenes when it is there, it is right in front of you. You're just able to kind of appreciate how great the makeup design. Like, it's not that they were hiding it because they didn't want you to see it. It was solely because they're hiding Count Orlok because they want to continue building that tension. And when that does pay off, it is just a great reveal. The makeup design for him is just phenomenal in this film. This is another one that I would be remiss if I didn't also just kind of mention a lot of the other characters as well. With this being a period piece, I think yeah, it's the only period piece in this category. Typically, there's a couple of these, and so you kind of have to get these period accurate looks and designs with your makeup and your hairstyling team. And so I do think that that is something that Nosferatu does deserve a lot of credit with. Is all of the other characters, your Nicholas Holtz and your Lily Rose Depp's and your Willem Dafoe's. The makeup work on all of them is just it's done so well. Is in addition to obviously to Skarsgård and for what they're able to do there. So it's just one of those things where it's just again you have the one figure, you have the one main piece that this is what the makeup design is working so well. Then you have all the other characters, so it all is just kind of coming together. And this is potentially a little bit of a spoiler, so I'm kind of saving it right here at the end. But in particular with Count Orlok and with his character, a lot of it is kind of the makeup work at the end of the film. I think is also kind of, and like I talked about, it's kind of at the moment where he is the most visible and the most you can see all of the work, and he's kind of going through a little bit of a transformation, we'll say, at that point of the film. And so just kind of being able to see the different kind of stages or the evolution of his makeup and the design of him just kind of deteriorating a little bit in the end is just super impressive. And so that was one of the things the first time I saw Nosferatu that I was so in love with, was really just kind of the design of Count Orlok. So my personal ranking, I'm putting Nosferatu in second, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in fourth. The next nominee is The Substance. This is the first Oscar nomination for all three of Pierre-Olivier Person, Stephanie Gillian, and Marilyn Scarcelli. Pierre-Olivier Person worked in the makeup department in 4 episodes of Game of Thrones. Stephanie Gillian's other 2024 credit was as a makeup artist on Dans la Cuisine des Nuens. Marilyn Scarcelli was a hairstylist on Julia Ducournau's Titan. Now, this is the first of a couple times, I think is 5, right? The first of 5 times that we're going to talk about my favorite film that was nominated for an Oscar this year, and it is The Substance. Now, again, kind of the same thing like I was just talking about with Emilia Perez, where just because I don't like the film, I'm not going to grade it on the scale of because, I don't like the film, I'm going to put it in 5th on all my personal rankings. If I like the category that you're nominated for, I will give you, the credit in that category. And it's the same thing here with The Substance. Just because it is my favorite film of the category, I'm not just automatically giving it number 1. I'm gonna, if the film earns it, then, I'll give it its number 1 spot in both, kind of my prediction or in my personal ranking. And The Substance does earn it. That is, when I first saw The Substance all these months back, seeing it in theaters, the Oscars were the furthest thing on my mind. It was one of those that I was watching this, having a great time watching this film. In my head, I'm like, there's no way this would be something that would be honored at the Oscars. And never in my wildest dream did I think it would get 4, like, above the line nominations: director, actress, screenplay, picture, right? Like, never in my wildest dreams did I think that was an outcome for this film. In my head, as I was watching it, the entire time I kept thinking, if there is any chance that this film gets any sort of like awards buzz, I would love for it to get like a makeup nomination. And back then it was one of those things of just looking at it as it's so great, and if you've seen the film, you understand why it's so great, right? But it seemed like this is just something the Oscars wouldn't touch. Like, this is just not up their alley, right? So that was my whole mindset, as I was just very much just kind of hoping that there was some world where it could get in there, sneak in there, and then, probably doesn't win, but at least it got the nomination, and hopefully some people check it out for that. The Substance really has just been, it didn't just sneak in, because it's been such a strong contender in those 4 above the line categories like I've talked about, because it was always there for those nominations. The makeup nomination just went along with it. Like, it was just a lock the entire time. And I don't want to necessarily talk. It's kind of weird doing this video where I'm like kind of stepping around it, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about the makeup too much because a lot of the makeup in this film is a bit of a spoiler. I will talk about that there is some makeup with kind of the idea of the substance of this woman who takes this black market drug that is kind of changing, makes a younger, better version of herself, and in return, kind of really kind of starts rapidly aging her. And so there are just these scenes where you see her as she's rapidly aging before we get to kind of the real big reason that the makeup is part of the prosthetics is what is getting this nomination. You still do see a lot of great makeup work on Demi Moore as she is kind of rapidly aging, and then you just got great makeup kind of the opposite way on Margaret Qualley, where you just have the sexier, younger version, more perfect version of this character. So her makeup is kind of, as opposed to with Demi Moore, it's kind of this aging and trying to make her look a little more old and ugly. You got Margaret Qualley, where it's doing the exact opposite, the makeup that is making her look younger and sexier. And so there's just so much with the substance that the makeup, it's the most crucial part of the story, especially when you get to that third act. And again, if you haven't seen the substance, watch it and just know that when you get to that third act, that's where you're going to get the real treat of the entire this makeup nomination. But it's just one of those that not only is it my favorite of the category, but I think it really has cemented its spot as the frontrunner as well. So, no surprise, The Substance is first in my personal ranking and first in my prediction. And the final nominee is Wicked. This is Frances Hannon's second Oscar nomination. She won back in 2015 for The Grand Budapest Hotel. This is Laura Blunt's first Oscar nomination. Her previous two credits were in 2023 for Wonka and The Boys in the Boat. This is Sarah Newth's first Oscar nomination. She worked on two separate Oscar-nominated films last year, Barbie and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And we're continuing the theme here, 5 for 5, where we're talking about the reason the films get a makeup nomination is for one specific character, and obviously it is for Cynthia Erivo, it is for Elphaba. Now, this is one of those that I don't want it to just seem like we're just saying, oh, they painted Elphaba green, makeup Oscar. Like, it wasn't just a simple process of her just putting on green paint. Like, obviously there is so much extra work that is going into getting this look, to completing the look of Elphaba. I'm also going to say that it's a weird category. This is kind of a thing or a discussion that happens every year in this category. The category is best makeup and hairstyling, yet every single year we kind of just mostly focus on the makeup side of it, and it's not even necessarily just like the makeup in terms of you think of like a Galinda, or you just think of like any of the other characters in this film that do have good makeup work. We think of makeup, or where the Academy honors makeup, more so in terms of the prosthetics. Like, that is, whatever film has the most prosthetics, that's kind of what typically wins the category, which is kind of why I think The Substance is the big frontrunner. It is the film with the most prosthetic work. Wicked, the advantage that I think Wicked has is it has the advantage of, in addition to the makeup, it does have the hairstyling as well. There is so much excellent hairstyling. And I'm realizing I said earlier in this video, when I was talking about Emilia Perez, where I said it had up and away the most amount of characters just because of all the background characters. I don't know why in my head I kind of just skipped over Wicked. I didn't consider Wicked. Wicked probably has more than Emilia Perez, I would assume. Actually, it's a little bit longer of a film. There's more set pieces. It takes place in like a school, so there's just so many extra people. But this truly is one of those nominations that, in addition to the prosthetic work, or I guess not even the prosthetic work, but just the makeup design of Cynthia Erivo's character, the makeup that all of the other characters, Miss Marble and Jeff Goldblum's character, does not really any outward prosthetic work, but just the makeup design, as well as, just every other, Nessa Rose and Galinda, like every other character has their own impressive makeup that they've got going on. And then you get to the hairstyling aspect of this category, where again, just so many different characters, so many unique hairstyles. Elphaba specifically, Cynthia Erivo, with kind of the micro braiding on her in her hair. The hair specifically for Ariana Grande, for Galinda, is a very kind of big important part of her character. The way she's kind of constantly tossing her hair around, so just kind of the hairstyling of her character is a big focal point of the story. But again, just so many other characters. They all have these unique hairstyles, these unique makeup designs. So I think sheer volume wise, Wicked and Emilia Perez are the two that are really in here for the most part, because of the just kind of the overall overwhelming amount of work that they had to do. And ultimately I think that's kind of what is getting these films their nominations. And so for my personal ranking, I'm putting Wicked in fourth, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in second. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of these nominations, if there's any films that you think should have been nominated in this category that didn't. And also just make sure that you're staying tuned to the channel, because I'm going to, like I've been doing so far this week, and like I said, I'm hopeful all the way up until the Oscars, pretty much every single day until then, I'm hoping to upload a video kind of, in the evening time every single day. So just make sure you're staying tuned, because another category breakdown video is coming tomorrow for you. So if you'd like to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of those upcoming videos, I would greatly appreciate it, and have a great day.